Hey guys, it's Henry, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how you can use Fireflies AI to automatically create transcripts for your video calls with clients or prospects, and then automatically add that to Notion in a simple Zapier workflow. So the first step in this is when a new transcription is created. So what we're going to do is set up inside of Zapier this first step, the setup being Fireflies AI. Now in order to do that, you're going to need to add in your own API key. To do that, go into Fireflies, go to your settings, and then on the left hand side here you've got developer settings. It will scroll down and you'll be able to grab your API key from down here. You just copy that into Zapier along with the email address and it will sync up and it'll basically allow Zapier to talk to Fireflies AI. So that's the first step. So when you've had a new call created, the transcription's been created, you want to have the only trigger event available, which is a new meeting. And to configure this, you can have this set up as a transcript format of a PDF or a doc. It doesn't really matter too much. You want to include the names and the timestamps. Notes list format, you want that to be in plain text, ideally, just for simplicity here. And then you can go ahead and test that and it will find your most recent Fireflies transcripts. If I go back to Fireflies now, I'll just show you in the home page how this looks. You'll have all of your previous calls here set up. So what it will then do is just list them out and you can select the most recent one and that will allow you to then test that this is going to work. So we'll continue with that most recent transcript from Fireflies. Then the next step is if you've got lots of calls happening, you only really want this to be allowed to continue if it's a client call only, not just any call with anyone. So it might be a team member or it might be somebody else. So we can set up a really simple filter here in step 2, which is where we're only going to allow it to go through if it's with a client. So in this case, the client calls I have are called systems audits, client review calls, and a handover call. So in this step, we're going to put only continue if the title of the call here contains either a systems audit, or the title contains a client review call, or the title contains a handover call. If it doesn't contain those things, then it won't allow it to go on. And the reason for this will become obvious, but essentially after this, it's going to find that client within your leads tracker within Notion. And obviously if it's a call with someone on your team or somebody else who isn't a lead or isn't a relevant prospect, it's not going to find it and the automation won't work. So you want to stop at this point if it isn't a client call. So once we've done that, we can test that step. So we go retest the filter. So the Zap would not have continued because the most recent call I had here was not with a client, so it would have stopped, which is perfect. Now in step 3 here, you can use a little bit of an AI step. You can just use an extract the email step, but I tend to find this AI step is a little bit more accurate and consistent with its prompt that you can use. Basically what we want to try and do here is extract the lead's email address now from the attendees email address list. So we want to use inside of Zapier AI a custom prompt, and we want to use the fastest and simplest model, which most recently probably be ChatGPT 4.0 mini by default. You can use 5, but 4 is more than capable of handling a simple task like this very, very quickly. The input fields here we want to put as the attendee's email address from Fireflies now. So if you press the cursor key, new transcription created, attendee's email address is here is what we're looking for. And as you can see, it's going to list my email address and then the email address of the other person on the call. So that's where we just want to make sure we've got that listed, hit up save, let it know that it's a text input. And then a very simple prompt here is just please find the lead's email address from this text. Don't return info@smartcoachsystems as this is our business email address. Find the other email address listed. Return this as a single email address, for example, john@gmail.com. So if we can generate a preview, and it successfully found the output as the correct email address from that list. So step 4 is ready to go. Step 3 is now working. So just as a recap, transcript's been created, it's filtered it only for client calls, and then it's extracted the correct email address from the transcription. So great, we've got the right person's email address now. Now step 4, when we go to Notion, we want to be able to add this to our leads tracker. We want to make sure that all the transcripts get added to the relevant person's profile. So if we go onto that person's profile, you can see all the call transcripts in a single place rather than scrolling through Fireflies to find the right transcript for the right client. It can be a bit messy if you've got lots of calls going on. So step 4 then is to find the lead. So what you want to set up in this step is in Notion, find a data source item. The reason why we want this is because we want to see that that data source item is essentially a client's profile. So we want to find it, and then once we found it, we want to add the call summary to that leads profile. So in terms of configuration, I've got something called the leads tracker. In other words, this is where I keep all my leads, so any calls with potential clients or prospects, for example. If you wanted to set this up to have all of your sales calls added in as well, you can also do that, but for simplicity, I'm just doing client calls for today. We want to then, once we found the right database, we then want to just make sure that the email address we're looking for is the one from step 3. Now, for this simplicity here, I've set up another profile on Notion, which will make sense in a second, which is just this test one. But to do this properly, what you do is make sure you go to cursor, and again go to step 3 to extract the email address to the output, and then that's the email address we're now going to look for inside of Notion. But again, for simplicity for today, I'm just looking, because I've set up a test profile, I'm looking for that specific static email address rather than this dynamic one pulled from step 3. I want to set it up so it's false that if the step run status is stopped, the whole process gets halted if it doesn't find the right lead here. So if it can't find the right lead, it will stop, is what we want to see. If multiple search results are found, then return the first one, because you might have duplications for whatever reason. So just to avoid that from happening, just look for the first result essentially. So it's looking for this test profile that I've set up inside of Notion. So if I go to Notion now, you can see that I've got this test email address set up, or this test profile set up inside of Notion. So if we click on it, you can see that I've got my name, I've set it as an interested prospect, and the email address is test@smartcoachsystems.com. So we'll be able to look up this specific email address. So back to Zapier, we then retest. It should then say a data source item was sent. Okay, cool. So a data source item was sent to Notion. In other words, it's found the right email address, it's found the right profile. And if you took to scroll down here, should then see the right details. Yeah, so the properties email address, test@smartcoachsystems, properties name, Henry Davis, the URL of the profile, all looking good. So we can continue now because we found the right profile. Step 5 then finally is to create a data source item, which is essentially we're now going to add the transcript to that profile that's been found. So we want to have the action event under Notion. Step 5 is create a data source item. In configure, we want the data source now to be the session notes database that I've built. So if I go back to Notion, go to this person here, what I've got is this section set up called the client session notes. In other words, this is like a sub database inside of Notion that will allow you to track all of the session notes for that individual on every single call, and it will then be able to attach to their profile. So what we want to be able to do is take the transcript that we've got. It's now found the right profile here inside of Notion. We want to add it to the session notes. So if we go back to Zapier again, we want to have the note, which is going to be the name of the note essentially. So we want the title. So if we just go back a step, go to step 1 again, so the new transcription created, you want the title of that, so it will then remind you of what that actually was. The session type, this can be made into a custom if you wanted to, which would be you could have the type of session. You could change that to, for example, if it was called a systems audit call, or it was called a client review call, then you could add a little bit of formatting here and extract the name of that. But for simplicity, we'll just leave this blank for now. We're just going to have the name of the call itself. The client, in other words, which profile you want to add this to, has already been found in step 4. And again, just to clarify, what we're doing here is we're looking up step 4, find the lead, and the ID is the right profile that's just been found. So we know we've got the right profile. We just need to add this to that profile now. Include time with date fields. It's the start date today. That would make sense because obviously you want it to come from the day it's been added. But you could also do the following, which is go to date. And then it would obviously format the date correctly from that, just in case there's a bit of a lag maybe, or you're adding it retrospectively. So the simplest thing to do here is probably to add in the date from step 1. Then the content here, this is actually what's going to be included in the transcript itself. What we want to see is a bit of an overview, the key action items, general gist, summary, and then the URL into Firefly, so we can go into a more detailed breakdown if we wanted to. So here I've just gone, again, back to step 1, and we want to look for all of these key bits here. So we've got an overview, which is then essentially what was spoken about. We've got action items, so what needs to be done. We've got a general gist in here as well, which is kind of like a shorter summary. There's a short summary, then there's also the full transcript URL as well. Lots of ways we can do this. If you wanted to, for example, you could add in a super short summary, how long the call was. There's an audio URL. There's shorthand bullet points here. So it can kind of be done in lots of different ways. For simplicity, I've done it this way, but what we're going to do, just to make this slightly better, is actually just title this so that each time it happens, it will add this automatically. So you might have overview, then we'll have our action items, then we'll have general gist, short summary, and then let's add in the transcript as well. Now you want to add this in, again for simplicity, as plain text. If you wanted to add this as HTML then or Markdown, you could then obviously add bold formatting, italics, headings, that type of thing. But just for simplicity, you want to just add this information in. So we're going to hit continue. So in summary, at this point now, what we've done is we've got the transcript, we've filtered it, we've extracted the email address, we've found that lead in Notion. We're now going to add that content to that person's profile, and it should add it to the call session notes database as well. So if we test this out, retest the step and go back to the profile inside of Notion, what we should see here, as we can see as it's popped through, is the correct one added to the correct profile here. And if we click on it, what we've now got is overview of what happened. So we've got a training progress, all these key things that were spoken about in this call, key action items, general gist of the call, and then a short summary and a link to the transcript as well. Now to make this even better, what we could do, for example, is go back in here, go into where we're adding the summary, and we could change the information that we're adding in here, or we could change it to Markdown instead, which would allow us to then have kind of neater headings, that type of thing. We could neaten all of it up. So for example, once we've got all of the summary, we could neaten up the formatting using AI and then add that into the profile as well. There's quite a few ways we could do this, but the simplest way possible, we just want to have the transcript added in as quick as possible. So now what's going to happen is instantly now, whenever a new recording is added to Fireflies, it's going to extract the transcript, find the email address, find the lead inside of Notion, and then add it to Notion as well. So I hope that's been useful. And if you've got any other questions on that, please drop them below. If not, there's an email you can be added to, or an email list you can be added to down below, where you can get 14 ways in 14 days to improve and automate your business.